If there are any spiritual advisors, conjure women's, conjure men's, or even your ancestors and spirit guides themselves, telling you to give them a physical altar to venerate them over, prioritizing the fundamentals of internal healing and spiritual ascension. That's a red flag. And the reason why it's a red flag is because our internal healing and spiritual ascension is one of the most potent important and direct forms of veneration that you can give your bloodline, your ancestors. Okay? Spirit guides, I believe, do benefit from your healing as well. Yes, they do. But if we're talking about, ancestral veneration, having that altar up is important. It's important because, there must be an equal energy exchange. There must be equal give and take, especially when these beings are fighting to protect you, bring stability into your life, etc., right? But your own vessel, your own being is directly connected to theirs. And it is connected to the important things, the important aspects of themselves, right? The aspects of them and of you that should be prioritized, which is your DNA and recoding it or decoding that trauma that is attached to it. So if there are spiritual advisors, conjure men, conjure women, telling you to put an ancestral altar, to put spell work, in some cases spell work should be put before certain things, like especially like if you're under spiritual warfare, protection spell work is one of those dire spell works. But I'm talking about more so for the ones that are not really dire. If a spiritual advisor, conjure woman, conjure man is telling you to put those things in an altar for your ancestors to give them food or whatever type of offerings that they are requesting over, telling you what it is you need to work on internally in terms of shadow work, in terms of healing any and all known and unknown traumas, in terms of leaving that karmic relationship, in terms of leaving that karmic job that is creating blockages in other areas of your life. If they're telling you to do, and those are just a few examples. If they're telling you to do that, that altar, that more mundane thing over something that is spiritually fruitful and nutritious, they're low vibrational. It's possible that the spirits that they're working with are low vibrational as well. You all have to be very careful what type of spirits you call upon. Because although, not all spirits are demonic, there are some spirits that are low vibrational. There are some spirits that don't intend to be low vibrational. They just haven't ascended and elevated their souls in the timeline that they're in the spiritual realm. And a lot of people believe that because they're an ancestor, or because they're on the other side, they're automatically in this position of authority, or they're automatically healed and, all knowing, or have all of these powers. And that is just quite simply not the case. Know who you're working with. And you can know who you're working with, know what kind of beings you're working with by knowing their priorities. If their priority is for you to do something that is not conducive to your internal world more than anything, that's a red flag. And I could give many examples of that. but I'm sure that you all can imagine. And if you can't imagine, let me know. I'll do a whole different video on that and my experiences with that. But there are ancestors and spirits that can be just as selfish as like your karmic family members. Like personally, I got into spirituality to diverge from my karmic family. And before I really knew how to call out divine, high vibrational, loving, ascended ancestors and spirit guides in that order, that way, I was like experiencing my karmic family all over again through these beings on the other side. And they were being so demanding. You know, they were wanting so much from me, just wanted to ride off of me. And there were areas in my internal world falling apart. And some of those areas I did not see, you know, until I got to a certain level or until certain experiences happened or certain people came along my path. Excuse me, I just had a smoothie. And there were certain areas that I did see, and I would just question, like, why are you putting this over this? Why is that important to you? Why can't you see the importance in this to me? Why are you disregarding me emotionally? And I realized where I was settling. You know, I realized that I thought that this was it for me when it came to divine love. Like, I thought that this was all that I was limited to experiencing. Like, it didn't get any better than this. And what that was something that wasn't really satisfying me. But I'm grateful for that lesson because it has taught me to have better boundaries and also to have discernment. So it's very important to know what type of beings you're working with. And let me elaborate on the satisfied part because I'm listening back to it because I was like, damn, I forgot something, but I don't know what it was. And I'll mention that after this, but I just want to say too, like, sometimes you're going to hear things you don't want to hear for your healing, for your evolution, so that you can really ascend and help yourself, you know, help yourself and your divine family evolve, which is, you know, would be the divine ascended high vibe ancestors that you're working with when they in the spiritual realm and when they do reincarnate, and also help the collective as well. And when you hear those things, when you get that discipline, it's not always going to be satisfying. You know, you could be saying to yourself, this is not satisfying, but it could be exactly what your shadow needs to heal, what your inner child needs to heal. So I wanted to elaborate on the satisfaction part when I was talking mostly in reference to talking about the low vibrational spirits that I was working with. What I mean by not satisfying, I really mean it wasn't in divine alignment with me. Sorry. It wasn't in divine alignment with me. It didn't have the balance of, hey, you know, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to get serious about, with the balance of, we're telling you this information with energies of care and concern, not energies of disregard, not energies of, you know, failing to account for, you know, the work that you have done, failing to validate, you know, your trauma. It is a very balanced energy. Like, yes, your trauma is valid. You know, we account for the work that you've done. You've done amazing. You've done good. But you're still due for more work. And as long as you need to reincarnate, you're always going to be due for more work. And these are just some of the things that you need to work on right now. It's 11:55. It just turned 11:56. With the low vibrational spirits and ancestors that I was working with, there were moments where I felt like, why am I having to pull you up to see on my vibration? Why am I having to explain to you how this is not emotionally intelligent of you to say or to do? How is it that you're having inappropriate behavior, yet also simultaneously trying to correct mine in a very condescending and hypocritical way? You know what I mean? Like, in a divine, loving connection, it has that balance that I referred to. And it's many layers to this, but the main important thing is calling out the right spirit guides. You cannot just say benevolent. You cannot just say, oh, all of those ancestors, all of the ancestors in my bloodline that have my best and highest interest. You may think that's enough, but it's not. And it's because, how do you know? When I was saying best and highest interest, my vibration was low, right? So my perception of what was in my best and highest interest was low as well. It wasn't where it divinely was meant to be, right? Because again, sometimes the things that are in your best and highest interest, the most divine and high vibe interest of you, are not things that you directly necessarily want to hear or do. But when they're presented to you, they're not presented in a forceful or coercing or domineering way, you know? And that's another thing too. Spirits are not going to put you in a position to feel obligated to things. They'll tell you things maybe one or a few times if needed. And after that point, it's just karma. It's never like harassing or bullying. And that's something that I kind of experience, well, very much so experience from these karmic low vibe ancestors and spirit guides as well. But saying ancestors, all ancestors known and unknown. Oh my gosh, that's the biggest mistake I see people do. All ancestors known and unknown. That's definitely not good enough. You're not even specifying what type of ancestors you want to be working with you. Saying best and highest interest is not enough. Saying benevolent is not enough. Again, you have to be very specific because, again, people think that because these beings are dead, they're automatically ascended. They automatically have all these superpowers. And that's not true. You want to be working with beings, right? High vibrational, loving, ascended, divine is the adjectives you should use. You want to be working with those type of beings specifically because these are beings that are not on your vibration, right? Just think about it. Why would you want to be friends? No, let me take that back. Why would you want to take advice from a friend who is not married about your marriage? Wouldn't you want to take advice from a friend who has been married several times, has maintained, her marriage or marriages for several years, right? And is also like an extremely good friend and person to you, aside from in that one area. That's the type of analogy that I'm referring to with, the type of ancestors and spirit guides you want to be calling out. You shouldn't want to work with any beings that, you have to, say, hey, this is not okay. Hey, I didn't, of course they will test you to see, like, okay, for example, sometimes I get visions at night, right? And sometimes they come from my guides, and their intention may not have been to disturb me. And, they'll give me the vision, and 9 times out of 10, well, pretty much all the time, it's about something important. And I say, okay, thank you for that vision, but no more after this because I'm trying to go to sleep, right? You still have to set boundaries, and they still want you to have boundaries. High vibe beings are going to want you to have boundaries, right? I just got an energy confirmation of that in my body. But when you're dealing with divine, loving, high vibrational, ascended ancestors and spirit guides, you are not going to have to pull these beings up to your level. You are not going to have to explain much to them, right? You are not going to have to explain your needs to them. You are not going to have to beg to them. You know, prayer is needed. I'm not talking about prayer. That's a whole different topic. But these beings are not on your level. They are well above. And personally, I don't want my friends to be guiding me. You know, by default, yes, we're guiding each other. You know, friends are meant to, especially high vibrational friendships, we're meant to learn from each other. We're meant to guide each other in one way or another. But what I'm saying is, I don't want my friend, someone who is on the same level of evolution as me, right? I just saw 555, to be guiding and directing major parts of my life, major parts of my divine destiny, right? I want to work with the best of the best. My friend is on my vibration. Imagine the friend in this example is the low vibrational, generally unascended and or purely demonic ancestors and spirit guides. And you wouldn't know this. You wouldn't know if they're low vibe or just not ascended in the way that they should be, or just demonic, by just saying any and all known and unknown ancestors. You wouldn't know that by just saying benevolent or best and highest. You wouldn't know that by that. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? But say your friend is a spirit that may not even be that low vibrational, might be on a similar vibration as yours, but just not high enough to be able to put you on the path that is most divine and godly for you, the path that God really wants you to be on. That friend can only do but so much. Yes, beings external to you can only do but so much in general, but that friend specifically, not being as ascended as a high vibe loving ascended divine ancestor and spirit guide would, can only assist you but so much. And then when we get to talking about for that friend as well, but especially with low vibrational friends, aka spirits and ancestors, demonic, just unascended, not where they're supposed to be with their souls and in the timeline that God has set for them. They may not see your divine path, or they may see it and not give a fuck. Right? They may see it and just not give a fuck. Just not care. These beings are capable of having immature energy too. You think when you die, all of that energy you didn't address, all that energy you didn't do shadow work on just goes away? No, that shit stays right with you. Like, that's what I want people to understand. And what I mentioned prior to this is that there are those ancestors and spirit guides, right? That are, they may not be super low vibe, but they're just not ascended in the way they should be. Or they are low vibe, or they're demonic. And they can help you in one area, right? But they can't really help you in many others. So what these beings are, by doing that, these beings are by default encouraging you to prioritize earthly matters, if not earthly matters, just superficial, insignificant matters of yourself and of your life over more important matters that are much more conducive to your evolution. So, for example, people will idolize and love certain spirits, right? And it's okay. Like, it's okay to have love for spirits in general, It's okay to want to love and care for spirits. I'm a very caring and loving person myself, but I had to learn who's deserving of that energy and who's not. But people will idolize spirits for doing certain things. Sometimes they're working with that actual spirit or ancestor, and sometimes they're not, right? Sometimes they're working with tricksters of actual high vibe, divine, ascended, loving, or rishas and saints. And they don't even know that they're working with a trickster because, sometimes, the actual beings will let them get away with certain stuff for the sake of their evolution or because that's just their path, right? It's many layers to it. But what I wanted to say is I see a lot of people idolizing beings or idolizing. It's like you're responsible for this too. You're responsible for your own evolution as well. But I see a lot of people idolizing beings or ancestors like, oh, my ancestor helped me manifest this lump sum of cash, or they helped me get with this partner, unbeknownst to them, is karmic. They helped me do this or they helped me do that. They helped me coerce this man into giving me all his money or doing this for me or taking me out, like little shit like that, superficial shit like that. And that's just one example. That's not all the examples of how superficial shit manifests. Something superficial, for example, can be, I want my butt to look bigger because I care about what other people think, or I want to make my voice sound a certain way because I don't want to be perceived a certain way. That's, other manifestations of superficial shit. And it can go a little bit deeper than that, but yeah. So there are ancestors and spirits that can indeed help you manifest some of those things that you want in the material realm. Like that man that's probably karmic. Like that job that you might not like, or you might actually like it and it might not divinely be meant for you. That's a whole other video. Anything, money, and you're thinking because they're helping you manifest these things that they're powerful. Well, yes, they are powerful, but that they're divine and that they're ascended. And it's just like, they are so capable of manifesting you. They're so powerful when it comes to manifesting you these things because the things that you desire are low vibrational. Money is needed and money is important, and money has a spiritual power. Don't get me wrong, right? We need money. We need the balance of the earthly realm. But when that is the majority of what you prioritize in your life and what you care about, and you put that over healing, and you put that over, truly taking care of yourself from the inside out. And you have an ancestor or a spirit guide who also has that mindset and never evolved out of it. You wouldn't have a hard time attracting that into your life, right? You wouldn't have a hard time. They wouldn't have a hard time helping you manifest it or manifesting it for you. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times in life where we have to prioritize money over, doing a healing conjure, doing a self-love conjure, doing a cord cutting conjure, doing, conjures regarding recovering from trauma, becoming emotionally stable, becoming aware of yourself, doing shadow work. Sometimes in life, shit gets that serious, and it's like, okay, spirits, like I need an emergency favor with money. They understand that, and that is very much so valid. I'm not disregarding those times, right? I'm disregarding, people who make that their bread and butter of life and of the spiritual world. People feel like being spiritual is being a witch and the glitz and glam and, tangible surface level. Oh, I have this altar, I have these deck of cards. I can do this and I can do that and I can make this happen. But it's like, can you make healing happen? Can you make real, genuine evolution and ascension happen? Because a lot of that shit doesn't have to do with what you think it has to do with. And or it just doesn't have to do with a lot of the material shit that y'all idolize. And it's like, you don't even want the things, a lot of y'all don't even want the things that you think you want. You've just been programmed to think that you should have it because that's what everyone else has, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is, don't be fooled by what they can do for you. These spirits that are not high vibe, loving, divine, and ascendant. And I know I keep repeating that, but it is very important that you use those adjectives when you're calling these beings out and when you're referring to them, because you don't want to call in the wrong beings. And and I should also make a video about how a lot of people are under spiritual warfare and don't know it, and generally passive spiritual warfare due to things like this, due to this very topic. But yes, like, ultimately, call out the right beings. Don't be fooled, because these beings can do things that seem good but aren't really good for you. It's like candy. Like, every kid wants candy, right? But if you're eating candy for lunch, breakfast, dinner, and dessert, that's not really good. And as a child, you're thinking it's good because you want it, but it's not really what's good for you. It's not really nourishing to your soul. Work with beings that are going to give you soul food and not bullshit, not junk food. And that's for anybody, not just, ancestors and spirit guides, but also friends and family too. And yeah, just be careful. Just use your discernment. Don't think that because you can't see them, that is their power in and of itself, and it makes them powerful, in all other areas. Like, use discernment, have boundaries, and love yourself.